If I hear people say, news media, anybody, reading, if I hear these people say one more time that Republicans and people who voted for number 45 are starting to regret their decision, if I hear it one more time, I think I'm going to puke or I'm going to start stomping like Pinky on Friday. Say it one more time. Just say it again. I don't want to hear about your regrets. Y'all going to see them regrets soon enough. Okay. That's no way to start a show, right? I'll start over. I'll be right back. Well, hello, and welcome to In Your Ear Radio. I am your host, Latoya. I'm so very happy to be with you today on this fine Saturday. It's beautiful. The weather's nice. Just had to turn on the AC for just a minute just to warm up the house. But other than that, we're good. I hope you have nice weather where you are now and are enjoying your day and the weekend. It is a weekend, right? I get confused now with these holidays and everything. But I got to go ahead and share this video. So I'll do that now and give you guys a chance to hop on into the live. I want to thank all of you for joining me today. Let me see. Yeah, thank you all for joining me today here on In Your Ear Radio. Yeah, we got a lot to get into, and I'm so happy to be able to share with you my thoughts and perspective on the shenanigans that's been going on here in this world that we live in on this planet called Earth, right? There's been a lot, right? I'm still kind of mixed up with my days because with the holidays kind of like throwing me off. Today feels like I don't know, not a Saturday to me because I was off Thursday and Friday. And I saw a meme. Somebody posted a meme that said this is. They posted it Friday that said this was the Sundiest Friday that they've ever experienced. So I feel them on that. But yeah, so it feels like they're still in time too because we're like at the last Saturday. We're at the end of the month. The last Saturday of November. Where did the time go? 2024 is almost up. When you go to sleep and wake back up, it might be 2025. Shout out to Rip Van Winkle. And that's what it feels like. My one of my teachers used to say she thought they were still in time. We would talk about daylight savings times and things like that. And I believe her, and I can't prove it, and I don't really understand the mathematical theory to associate how you can still time. But I know and I believe there is a way that it could happen, considering that man created time technically because the sun and the moon do what it do. They don't fall back or spring forward. But yeah, so I think it's something. I think they got us in the matrix. I think they know something we don't know. If they speed it up or slow it down, that they can make certain things happen or not happen. I don't know. That's my conspiracy theory thought for the day. You can share yours as well in the chat. And again, thank you all for joining me in the chat live and on YouTube. And shout out to GB who says, you know what time it is. What's up, family? And yeah, it's 9 o'clock. Let's go. Yeah, let's go. Let's do it. I'll go ahead and sip a little tea before I, get my throat a little moisture here. The air is dry. That's another thing. The air is dry. My allergies are not my friend. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, who's doing the Black Friday, y'all? Who's doing Black Friday? Y'all been shopping? Did y'all get involved in that? Yeah, it's quite interesting. The Me personally, I don't really get into it. I never did. I just feel like it's a gimmick. A lot of the things that they sell, they already equipped and established for this particular um, weekend, the day after Thanksgiving. So, you know, I can see maybe if there was something I needed that, we probably couldn't find a so-called good sale on throughout the year, which I buy mostly everything on sale. 99.9% of the things that I purchase are on sale. They're discounted. But other than that, maybe like a TV, I don't know, something, but I really don't partake. I just rather fall back. I don't like being in stores with a lot of people anyway. So yeah, I'm not interested. But It was estimated that 132 million American adults plan to shop Black Friday this year, and the average shopper will spend about $480. According to statistics from 2023, the average shopper did spend $480. That's not a, that sounds low. And 90.6 million shopped online for Black Friday. So, we also have Cyber Monday. So they have another sale going on after Friday, which will be 2 days from now, Monday. So yeah, but I posted a quote that, hey, look, there is a Black Friday special, and it's stay home and save 100%. How about that? How about that? I mean, I'm a saver. I love to see my money grow. I love to look into my bank account and see my money. I've always lived by the motto of pay yourself. Like, we pay our utility bills, we pay our insurance, we pay our car notes. We never see that money again. Can we have that same attitude towards our own selves and just put some money in the bank and let it sit there, and nobody will see that money again? Not Target, not TJ Maxx, not the power company, whoever. It's just an attitude to have. I think that's part of self-love too, making sure that you're straight, not just buying things that you don't necessarily need for instant gratification, temporary gratification, or whatever it is that you do when you spend, because that's what most people do on Black Friday. They try to get some good deals. And maybe they use those purchases to share for the holidays, Christmas, which is coming up. So yeah, but there's some interesting things. I know there's been a lot of talk about Black Friday and how Black Friday came about, the history of Black Friday, and there's just been different myths. So one of them was that the first recorded use of the term Black Friday, they said it was applied to it was during a financial crisis. So specifically the crash of the U.S. gold market in 2024 of September 2024. In 1869, or rewind the tape, in September 24th of 1869, two notorious ruthless Wall Street financiers, Jay Gould and Jim Fisk, worked together to buy as much gold as they could, all of the nation's gold. They tried to buy it up, hoping to drive up the price sky high on gold and sell it for astonishing profits, right? But on that Friday in September, the conspiracy finally unraveled, sending the stock market into a free fall and bankrupting everyone from the Wall Street barons and to the farmers. So they considered that being a Black Friday, I guess, considering it being dark, maybe, I don't know. Then another myth was that after an entire year of operating at a loss, in the red is what we call it in accounting, stores would supposedly earn a profit when they went into black. So on the day after Thanksgiving, because holiday shoppers blew so much money on discounted merchandise, they figured they could make a profit, right? So though it's true that retail companies used to record losses in the red and profits in the black when doing their accounting, the version of Black Friday's origin is the officially sanctioned but inaccurate story behind the tradition. So that's another myth. Another one is that surface that gives particularly an ugly twist to tradition, claiming that back in the 1800s, Southern plantation owners would buy enslaved workers at a discount on the Friday after Thanksgiving. I used to see that a lot post, and I thought it to be true. They said, though this version of Black Friday's roots has understandably led some to call for a boycott on the retail holiday, it has no basis in the fact. And yes, indeed, it is a retail holiday. The real history behind Black Friday, however, is not as sunny as retailers might have you believe. So back in the 1950s, police in the city of Philadelphia used the term to describe the chaos that ensued on a day after Thanksgiving when hordes of suburban and shoppers and tourists flooded into the city in advance of a big Army-Navy football game held on Saturday every year. No, not only were the Philly cops not able to take the day off, but they had to work extra long shifts dealing with additional crowds and traffic. Shoplifters also took advantage of the whatever was going to mayhem in the stores and made off with merchandise, adding to the law enforcement's headache. It was pretty big. So the Black Friday story, it stuck, but soon the term darker roots in Philadelphia were forgotten. So people, I haven't heard anybody talk about this story, to be honest. Maybe one or two people on social media just giving a breakdown of what their recollection of where Black Friday stems from. But I don't hear people talk about that as much as I hear people talk about the slavery aspect of it. But yeah, so since then, we've had these one-day sales bonanzas, and it's morphed into a 4-day event now, the whole weekend, and it's spawned into retail holidays such as, Small Business Saturday, Sunday, and Cyber Monday. So that's what it is. But the interesting thing about Black Friday is the amount of money that's funneled into this economy. It's wild. It's wild how much money is put into the economy. And when I think about Black Friday, I think about Black people and Black spending, and our contribution to this retail therapy or retail whatever they're calling it, bonanza. We contribute a lot as Black people. Considering that even the money that we spend, even if we do use it for small business retail days, or spending it in Black, buying Black, purchasing Black products, our dollar only stays in the Black community for 6 hours compared to dozens of others like the Jewish and Asian community. So we're giving that money away. We're not paying ourselves. We're not seeing that money stick in our communities to help grow and develop it. So that's pretty interesting. But I was reading an article. Said it was titled "The 300 Billion Black American Consumer Bag Breeds Big Business Opportunities." This is listed in Forbes in September of 2021, and it said the Black consumer expenditures, which means the amount of money that Black people spend. In 2019, it was 835 billion combined spending of the Black community in the United States. In 2019, 1.6 trillion in 2021. That was our spending power in 2021. That's how much the money that we've had went back into the American country and circulated wherever it went. It only stayed 6 hours in our community, however much money was sent there. But that amount of money, 1.6 trillion, is more than what Spain, Mexico, the Netherlands, Turkey, or Switzerland generate annually. So our spending power is greater than what some developed nations have. This is how much money we have. And they speak to the fact that a lot of people are still missing the mark on gathering up more money from the Black community, considering how we spend and how much money we spend. And they note that we are the trendsetters. Like, we are like tastemakers. People follow us. If you think about the way we dress with the, hip hop, our style, just the things that we watch and listen to, those things become popular globally. We don't get the respect that we should, right? But that's what it is. And the Black buying prowess, consumers have a major influence on spending. Like I said, we set the trend with luxury items. Most of our spending, however, I should say, is with luxury items like watches. They say that Black people account for 60 million of the 385 million in overall spending here. As for women's fragrances, Black women represent 151 million, and of the 679 million spent on fragrances, we represent 151 million of that purchase power. The Black community is more likely to purchase a product or service that is more in line with their self-image and the cost. The most recent data from the Federal Reserve reveals that the card debt sits at 1.1 trillion. So we're spending money, we paying it back. And I say that just mentioning the credit card debt, because a lot of the money that we're putting into this country, that we're putting into this capitalistic system, is not even just for the purchase. We're actually collecting interest. So you're going to a Black Friday, like, woody hoo, I'm getting a TV for $5 versus $1,500. And then you put it on your card and you pay it off in 6 months in increments or longer. I don't know. You make the minimum payment of $25 a month. I'll make the price higher because that wouldn't make sense to be paying $25 on a $5 purchase. But you say you spend $500 on a TV, you're making a minimum purchase of $25 a month. You're paying interest. If you forget to pay your minimum purchase price, then you're also paying late fees. So did you really get a sale on Black Friday? I don't know. So that's something to consider, being cognitive of what you're doing when you're spending, being deliberate and intentional, and understanding that if you're going in there because you think you're getting a deal, or it is a deal, make it a deal. Don't laugh now and cry later. And that's what a lot of us do when we pay for things on a credit card and then pay it off in increments. We end up paying, who knows, maybe 4 times as much as what it costs. And we know the average credit card interest rate for balances like 22+%. So just think, you're getting 22% on a $500 purchase, and you're going to get that again the next month and the next month until it's paid off. You're paying an extra 22% on that purchase. And is that what you really want to do? My advice is maybe save that $500. You know it's going to be a Black Friday. You must go out and buy that TV. At least have it already so that you can just go ahead and pay for it and get it out the way versus putting it on your credit card. I remember back in the 90s, there was a lot of ads trending in the 1960s. I think they were catering to it could have been between the 1960s and 80s. They were trying to, they were speaking to people, manufacturers per se, and saying that there is a market out there for Black spenders, and that Black people buy, and they were just saying cars and jewelry and luxury items, and especially cleaning products. We over-index on cleaning products, soaps and laundry detergents and perfumes, as I mentioned. And they were saying that we're missing out on a lot of money because of that. They were saying even Black hair care products and things like that. And so they were kind of trying to get people to understand that, if you want to capitalize, because all money is green, don't matter what color you are, right? All money is green. The best thing you can do is make sure you get that Black dollar as well, because again, there's a lot of money that's put into our purchasing power. So that's, something to think about, that people that don't care about us, don't like us, don't want to see us advance, don't necessarily give a damn if we thrive, do want our money. And so if we're going to be spending money like that, maybe we should focus on spending it with people who do care about us. Maybe, speaking to people, speaking to situations, maybe legislators who are writing bills and amendments and policies that will better suit Black people in our purchasing, and just overall whatever our demands and needs are here in the United States, and not purchase from companies that don't respect it. And I know that's very difficult, right? Because I know Walmart's a big name that's trending everywhere. We knew that they were big contributors to the number 45 campaign, and that's another thing I want to talk about too. I'm trying to get another name for him because we know that guy is going to be president, so he'll be the 47th president in January. And so I don't think number 45 would be the appropriate term for him still. Somebody said T-Rump, and I like that. It's like, yeah, T-Rump, right? That spells his name. And then also, we used to say stuff like the Orange Cheeto and all those different names. I know you guys. So if you have an idea of what we can call him besides using his name, because we don't want to make his name per se as popular as it has been, and that the news media and those who keep that name in their mouth use it. I'm not trying to give him no more popularity than needed. We have to talk about him because obviously he's going to be again the leader of the free world. But y'all let me know. Just hit me up in the chat if you got a good name to call this dude that's going to be number 47, currently number 45. But yeah, so but yeah, Walmart, contributed to the campaign in large sums, and now they're saying also Walmart is going to pull back on DEI programs, and that comes on the heels of companies like the Heritage Foundation, those who are helping to write the Project 2025 and implement all of their white nationalist ideals and implement them into our American culture. Those are the people who are suing. They sued small Black businesses for Black women who are having scholarship programs that are specifically geared towards helping Black women or Black men. Anything that's geared towards helping what we would call a marginalized group of people. They're saying there is racist, and that they don't want funding to be provided from tax dollars by way of government, whatever type of what do they call it? Not a loan, but there's a term for a lot of people get them, some type of business grant or maybe grant, and things of that nature. So they're attacking this at all angles because, in my mind, their focus is to indeed disable the Black dollar and to disable our power with our money. Because there is a saying that goes, shout out to the locks, that first you get the money, then you get the power, and then you get the what? First you get the money, then you get the power, and then you get the respect. And so I wanted to play there's a clip that I wanted. Anyway, it was the Locks, Lil Kim, and who else was it? DMX, right? Money, power, and respect. That's what we have to have. We got the money. I just gave you the stats on what our spending power. Again, we spend more money than some countries generate as a whole, developed countries as a whole. So we have the money. So the next thing we have to focus on is the power. Um, and that's very important. So there's a lot of corporations now. We can, with our money, we can use our power, to say, hey, we're not gonna shop with you. We're gonna spend our money elsewhere, and that takes a sacrifice. Shout out to Mr. Joe Madison, who said, in a movement, the difference between a movement and a moment is sacrifice. So we can have a moment and just say we're not going to do something for a day, but we can do that for 2 years. Shout out to the bus boycott, where men and women actually walked or carpooled, did anything but get on those buses that their taxpayer dollars were contributing to, when they were forced to sit at the back of the seat, back of the bus. And then they were also protesting, the it was the poor people's movement going on at the time too. So we have the money, we have the power, and we must demand the respect. We don't have to spend our money, and trust and believe they want our money. Trust and believe they want it. It's a lot of money to grab. A lot of generations contribute to this, this spending power. It's funny to know that the greatest generation with the most credit card debt, however, is Generation X. Wow, their average debt is not over 9,000 in credit card debt. Second to baby boomers, and then the millennials. Generation Z is at the lowest, and then there's a silent generation. I'm like, what a silent generation? But those are people born between 1928 and 1945. So they're spending their credit card debt averages about 3,400 annually. So yeah, we can, if we're going to spend our money, maybe we can be a little bit more specific on how we do it, because they take advantage of us. Like I said, all of the trillions that we are contributing to this, it's actually being spent in ways that don't benefit us. I mean, even if we purchase a home, Black and Hispanic, they said Hispanic white borrowers, they call Hispanic white. So, if you're Hispanic, you could be a different, there's no Hispania. I don't know if there's a country called Hispanic. There isn't. I'm being facetious, but I'm just saying, it says Hispanic white owners. Black and white Hispanic homeowners spend more than, they get more than 50 basis points higher interest rates than white borrowers. So you may be a homeowner, think you're living the American dream, but they're still taxing you and getting lots of money off of you. So that contributes to those trillions that are being funneled into this capitalistic society. And then, even though whites have more consumer loan debt compared to Blacks, it's good to know that Blacks, theirs is half of what consumer loan debt is. But of course, we're paying more, right? Interest rate rise for the most part, because there's a lot of things that happen with this. Because in some cases, there's a term they use that says, basically, if you don't have a credit history per se, then they charge you extra interest. And I experienced that. I had to actually go get a credit card. I think I was in my 30s when I got my first credit card, because I didn't really have any credit history, because I pay cash for everything. And I still use my credit cards the same way. God forbid I ever get in a situation where, I got to rob Peter to pay Paul per se. Then, if I have to pay that, monthly fee just to stay, above water, then that's what I'll do. But at this point in my life, I've been blessed enough not to be in that situation. So I don't go buy things that I don't need or can't afford, or just because I want them, and then pay a monthly, pay the minimum fee each month. I pay for what I pay for on my card. I use the system to build up my credit, and then I turn around and pay it off by the due date. You're not getting no interest out of me. Like I said, I do. I hardly ever buy things full price. So financial literacy is very, very important. And we have to consider boycotting and boycotting. And if you don't know the difference between the two, political consumerism refers to intentional avoidance of purchase of products because of political, social, and ethical concerns. So that's boycotting, right? And then you also have the intentional avoidance and the intentional avoidance of purchasing items, and that's boycotting. So we have to consider that. And I know it's not as easy as it sounds, but it is possible. And we just have to, love ourselves, right? We have to, be who we say we are, or the things that we complain about. I headed this show title off as "Actions Speak Louder Than Words," and that's what we're going to talk about today. And one of them ways is your buying power, showing who you are. And if you don't like what somebody's doing, if you don't like the way they're treating, you don't like the way they're what their policies are, or who they support monetarily, then you have the ability to show them who you are and not deal with them. And trust me, they'll feel that dent. Trust me. Also, though, I do want to touch on mental health during these holidays. It's a lot, you guys, and I just wanted to just brush over this, lightly. I would rather have a professional come on and really just break it down and just um, speak to this. But I just want to keep it on your radar that a lot of people are struggling during, not just during the holiday season, but even more so dealing with anxiety. A lot of people, things have changed, so the relationships that they've had before aren't the same, and it kind of affects their mood, their mind state, just a lot of things, financial strains, whatever it may be. And I know a lot of us, it's not easy to tell someone what to do when you don't really understand what they're experiencing, but you can empathize and you can find relatable situations to help you become more familiar with their experience. Just have patience and give prayer, offer resources, and trust the process. There's so many different signs as well. Of signs of just mental health issues, and some are more extreme than others. But just to give you some points, some people, it may be not taking care of their hygiene persistently, sad, anxious, or low, empty mood. Every time you talk to somebody, they're not saying anything positive. How are you? I'm hanging in there. How was your day? Oh, I've had better days. It's always something negative. It's nothing positive, uplifting. They're not picking out positive things to be thankful for. Because I could slip down the stairs and be like, shh, cuss or whatever. But when I stand up, my leg ain't broke. I'm like, thank God, at least I didn't break my leg. Or if I do fall and I break my leg, God forbid, I'm saying, well, at least I didn't paralyze myself. There's so many different ways to look at life, and that gratitude is filling that cup. So even if it's, half empty at that time or there's a spill, you can refill it with a gratitude in your attitude. So I just want you guys to be cognitive of people around you. There might be drastic changes in their mood, behavior, personality. They start shutting people out. Little bitty things will cause them not to talk to you anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like you may have said something inappropriate to somebody, and now you're the enemy. Those things could be associated with more so a sign of some type of mental health event going on with them. Changes in sleeping. A lot of people suffer from insomnia, developing, bad habits, difficulties, or oversleeping too. That's another thing. Changes in appetite, unplanned weight loss or gain, sudden overwhelming fear for no reason. Some people associate that with being paranoia, but you just, you people have their reasons, right? But these could be signs that somebody's asking for help or needs, a little bit of help, maybe from a professional. Seeing, hearing, or believing things that are not real, withdrawing from close friends and family, skipping work, school, or social activities. You might see that a lot, friends and family not coming around. And, like I always tell people, when people start to switch up in my own personal life where I don't see them as much, or they don't come around, or I just stop inviting them because they don't show up. I take it personal, and then I have to tell myself, Latoya, it's not about you. Sometimes people are going through things that have absolutely nothing to do with you, and you're just one of the you're part of the collateral damage. And so, sometimes maybe you don't want to press them and reach out to them, but maybe not take it so personal if they're withdrawing or not coming around or not taking your call. That maybe they are really having some type of event mentally. You might be having a mental health episode. Skipping work, not showing up, calling in. I knew somebody who said they didn't call in. They just didn't go to work for like a long time. And luckily, the person had a job that cared and loved them and pulled up on them at some point, and they kept their job and got back and bounced back and hopefully thriving now. Because even if people look like they're doing well, doesn't necessarily mean they are, because we survive on fumes, right? We walk out here and look good, and people assume that we feel good as well. So difficulty in concentrating as well, remembering or making decisions, or having intense worries or fears that can get in the way of activities. Some people don't want to go outside. A lot of that was my experience, a few of those with COVID. I didn't want to be around people. And even if I was holding my breath when they spoke around me. A lot of stuff I've overcome that I recognize now. But at the time, I was just like, just in the moment. But a lot of the things that really had me shook up with COVID were symptoms of the trauma, and it gets in your head and it messes you up. So some people even have self-harm or suicide attempts, severe or out of control, risk-taking behavior. Some people get really sexually active or just loose with a weapon, angry outbursts or aggression, random maybe, and then maybe even thoughts of death. So just I just want to keep that in mind for people who may be experiencing it. These are some of the symptoms, and if you see those signs, and some people, see what you can do to get them some help. Um, there's so many free resources available. Maybe I could post some on social media as well. But there's also things you can do to boost your mood. I watched Alex Cross. That was recommended by someone, and I did watch that. If you guys saw the movie with Tyler Perry, this is a series and it's on Amazon. So that might be a distraction if you're just not feeling like yourself and you're tired of the political stuff. You know what I'm saying? That might be something you might want to get into. And I was hearing a story that the actual writer, the author of Alex Cross, is a white man. And he said that he wasn't doing financially, he wasn't doing all that great financially, but he refused a deal which would have benefited him by the millions, because they wanted the lead actor to be a white man instead of a black man. And he refused that, and he gave his rationale for that. But anyway, that's just sidebar. Speaking of sidebar, I just want you guys to know, if you're not familiar with me, again, my name is LaToya. I'm the host of In Your Ear Radio. I post my titles of what this show, the subject matter may be about. And then if you actually watch the show, you might see that we talk about a lot more other things and not really drill in specifically to the subject matter at hand. And it's intentional because that's just the way I communicate, number one. Secondly, most of the things that I'm speaking to, the plethora of things that I'm speaking to, kind of tie in to what I'm talking about. So again, the title of the this show was actions speak louder than words, and I spoke to we'll be speaking on, are you treating people how you feel about them? That was a question I asked. And what are you willing to sacrifice to show your power? Are you consciously teaching people how to treat you? And are you putting your money where your mouth is? So it's like that. The things that we talk about, even when I'm talking about your spending power and what you have versus what you do, how you live, how you treat people, how you make your demands heard in the political realm, things that you don't like that have to do with social justice, again, spending and all of that. What are you doing? Are you really showing people how to treat you? And again, actions do speak louder than words. It really do. So I just wanted to kind of tie that in, because I know some of you might be like, well, when are we going to get to the meat and potatoes? This is all one entree. Like, if you make a pot of gumbo, you know that gumbo isn't just a shrimp. So when somebody asks you about making gumbo, you don't just say, oh, I just put some shrimp in it. You got to go through the roux. You got to give all the seasons. You got to tell them how long to cook the roux. You got to tell them what other items to put in, and just all kind of things. So it all makes up that pot of gumbo. So that's kind of how my show is kind of geared towards. If you ever find yourself wondering what the hell is going on, I thought we was talking about this and we're talking about that. We are talking about that. We definitely are. And yeah, so Thanksgiving, I know a lot of you guys celebrate. How was your Thanksgiving, or your Thanksgiving, or your family day, or your day of mourning, specifically for the Native Americans here, which is what they call Thanksgiving? How was it? Were you guys with your family? Did you guys enjoy each other? Did you have fun? Like, let me tell you, I enjoyed myself, and I'll get into that. But I just find it interesting with the holidays. There's just something about it. And I thought I was reading something actually. Before I read that, I remember taking a trip, and it was maybe in between maybe late November and early December. And I was in Mexico, and the room service people were like, okay, enjoy your holiday. And I'm like, it's not a holiday. And so I remember reading, though, brought me back to the fact that I remember reading that in other countries, for the most part, a lot of other countries consider a holiday just a day off. And so with us, a day off is a day off, right? But to us, a holiday is associated with the significance of celebrating a person or thing or an event, right? So for a holiday, the 4th of July or Juneteenth or Martin Luther King, his birthday and the birth of Jesus. Those are what we consider holidays. And most of us, if we have good employers, we get paid to have that time off to fall back and do what we do. But in a lot of other countries, when they say they're on a holiday, they're literally just, maybe they went on vacation, or maybe they just have a few days off from work. And that's exactly what it means. It's kind of the same thing, but we use it in a different way, right? So on the weekend, I don't say this is my holiday, even though I treat it like a holiday, because I turn up on the weekend just because I'm off. I can sleep in one of my rituals on my holiday, is Saturday morning, trying to sleep in, or Sunday or Monday, one of those days that I can do. And that's what it is. But that was just some interesting fun facts. But another thing, so yeah, I did have a great time with the holiday, and I'm happy, with those who I was able to be around. Man, we had a good time. I'm sorry. We did karaoke. That was the food was great. The company was great. And it really lifted up my spirits, because regardless of what you're going through, sometimes um, a little anxiety and sadness is hard to avoid when you are missing people, or things are just different and you're just trying to adjust. We're human beings, so we really, have to just dig into it. But one of the things I was laughing at is just our personalities during the holiday. And everybody has their own little personality. Certain people that's going to come, it's going to be that person that always comes empty handed, or it's going to be that person who complain about the food, or going to have a dry turkey, or just a funny cousin, or the drunk uncle, and all that. So we all have these different personalities that usually show up to the party, especially for those of us who have these, larger gatherings. And I was watching, and what was it, a IG post, I think it was on the Shade Room, and they were posting different scenarios of people and their personalities during the holidays, how they pull up or whatnot. So I'm gonna try to play them. But you guys tell me, what is your favorite holiday personality, and what do you consider your holiday personality to be? So one of the first ones that I saw was it was let me go. It was Lil Bootsy, and they called him uh, the loud uncle with plenty of story time. So
I'm clutching, cause you spooking everybody out. For the thing, y'all don't go out coming to the window. You spook people out. Now I'm paranoid. I'm clutching two on them. I had two on them in my lap. I'm clutching, cause you spooking everybody out. For the thing.
So he's talking about, he trading gun stories. But I was just, everybody got somebody in their family who's going to share a war story with you, and it's going to be violent. It's just, they got a war story for you. The other one was, it was posting Tiana Taylor, but it was the overdressed cousin who knows how to switch it up. We always have that cousin too, right? Like, they're gonna dress up, but they're gonna dress for the occasion, but they're gonna be dressed up. That's all I'm saying. That's one personality that's going to pull up. Also, we always have somebody that wants to do a line dance, right? They're going to show us a new line dance. And I love that part. I love that, learning something new, especially with somebody who know what they're doing and is a good teacher. That's a personality you see at Thanksgiving. Also, there was one that had Wiz Khalifa and Snoop Dogg walking, and they said, this is the cousins who go for a walk. And everybody know you got them cousins, especially the male cousins. They're going to be in the backyard somewhere in the cut, or in the front yard. They're gonna be somewhere. You're gonna be like, where they at? And they're gonna step away for a minute. So you got them kind of cousins. You also have them aunties. They always have advice, like Monique.
It took me a minute to say what I'm getting ready to say, because I want to make sure I'm not saying it in judgment, and I want to make sure I'm saying it from a place of love. Y'all, yeah. Some of y'all have given me the title of auntie, and I'm honored that y'all do that, right? But there are times where auntie gotta talk to her babies and say some real
Yeah. Then you have somebody who comes to get their to-go plates together and put them to the side, usually hand them off to the host. Put these in your microwave, put these in your pantry for me, I'll get them later. We all got that person. Is that your personality? Do you do that? Do you know somebody? Who are you thinking about?
It don't look vegan. Well, honey, it is. Every piece of it.
That's Tabitha.
Oh my God. It's going to be so good. Oh God, we thank you. Amen.
Come with the vegan meal. Come with the healthy stuff. I want to preach to you about eating healthy. Let me just tell y'all, on Thanksgiving, listen, be creative. Like, I have a sister who's vegan, and I will, it's causing me to be more creative with cooking, because vegan is one thing, vegetarian is one thing, but vegan is like no animal products. So you couldn't even eat my sweet potatoes because I use butter, and butter has a byproduct of animal, right? So, I mean, you really have to be strategic unless you're just gonna feed them salad. I mean, you could do basic things, but I like to cook people savory meals. And so I don't mind improvising and accommodating them so they can enjoy the same kinds of things that we eat on these days, where this is, to me, it should be a cheat day. You should be able to eat, differently than you would throughout the week. Hopefully, let that be your one cheat day. You also have that person who pulls up and they cooking everything, right?
Beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, chicken, turkeys, I got beans, greens, potatoes, tomatoes, lamb, rams, beans,
So we like them. We like that. We like that relative. No, they're gonna have everything. They coming in with everything. Then you got that one cousin want to tell you, oh, this gonna happen this year. This gonna happen next year. And then they pull up to remind you about everything that happened. I told y'all, just the antagonist. I call that the antagonist family member. Yeah. And then you had the one that show up drunk. Don't bring nothing. But they got a gang of jokes and reasons why they didn't bring nothing. But you're gonna laugh and have a good time and laugh about them. Yeah, you got the people that argue real loud at the spades table, right? And then you got them cousins that overshare, right? You got them.
You want to unpack that? And it was like, there go water. I might have some kids out there. I don't know. I donated some eggs. There might be some babies out there with my blood in them, with my DNA in them. I don't know. I used to drink out of the toilet sometimes when I was a kid.
So you don't know, you don't know if they high or what, but they got a deep thought to share with you. Then they had one that the only person who gets mad when they're on duty to clean up. It's like you didn't bring nothing. You should. This is a joyous moment. This is all of us as a community getting together. But this is I got somebody. I'm sure some of y'all family members know. I bet you we all picked the same person, but you got that one person who takes forever to pray over the food. So after they say their prayer, which is going to be extremely long, it's going to be a song involved too. And then, of course, we also have that person who says they're on their way, but the next time you see them is actually after the holiday and they just eating some leftovers with you, just a low key one, right? So this is some funny stuff. But which personality are you and can you relate to those people, and that too. So, yeah. So again, this is also National Native American Heritage Month, which started in 1990, more than decades later. Under it's been 7 decades. It can't be 1990. I don't know. So in 1990, the President George H. Definitely not 7 decades. The President George H.W. Bush signed a joint congressional resolution designating the month of November National American Heritage Indian Month. And so again, as I mentioned, the Native Americans. The Native Americans use Thanksgiving as a time of mourning, and I can respect that. I like what I heard a man say about the rituals that the Native Americans do on Thanksgiving as well. He says, to honor and remember their ancestors, we can place a plate of food on a plate and set it in a special place outside. So just a pinch of food that you think that your ancestors would enjoy, did enjoy, and place it somewhere in remembrance of them outside. And I was like, that sounds really nice. And it kind of made me think of, with me, I think a lot of times we do rituals, we do things and we don't even realize why we do them, like pouring out liquor. That's an African thing that we do, pouring out libations for the dead to pay our respects. But this year, my brother requested chicken and dumplings, and unbeknownst to him, I wouldn't have thought to make it, but I was very excited to make it because that's one thing my mom always asked me for. Like she was like back and forth living, from one state to the next. So whenever she would pass through, it wouldn't be long. So we couldn't always connect to the point where I could actually sit her down for a meal. But she would say, I sure would like some of your chicken and dumplings. And I would always tell her, whenever you can sit still, I got you. And so, when he asked to do that, I was like, okay, so mama gonna be at the Thanksgiving. And as you guys may or may not know, she did pass away in 2021. But that was like so heartwarming to me to think of. I will be making these per my brother's request, but also she must have told him to make them. I just feel like she was talking to him. And so there are rituals that we do to honor those who left before us that we remember and we want to continue to remember. And we don't even realize that we're doing them. And the ancestors come back and remind us of what we can do to remember them. And so making those chicken and dumplings was a very special moment for me, being in the kitchen with my mama spiritually and making them the best that I could, and just having conversations with her. But for the American Indian Heritage Month, again, established in 1990 by a former president, their theme this year, they have different themes every year. The theme is weaving together our past, present, and future. They will focus on the failed policies of the past with a focus on federal Indian boarding schools and moving into the present and the work being done to address the intergenerational trauma Native people still face. In partnership with the National Endowment for the Humanities and the Smithsonian Institution, they are working to record the lasting impacts of the era and share that information with all Americans. It says, as Indigenous people, our past, present, and future are all connected. Stuff that we say here on In Your Ear Radio, that we have to discuss the past in order to understand where we are, and we should never forget. So, shout out to the National Native American Heritage Month, along with those rituals. One ritual enslaved people did here in the 1800s in Africa was, they would use the holiday to their advantage. They would use their holiday to their advantage by, you know, the owners would be drinking and being festive and in good moods, and they would already plan their escape. So they knew on a holiday such as Thanksgiving that this would be their opportunity, where there wouldn't be any slave watchers, slave catchers, or the owners wouldn't be looking out for them. So that was an opportunity for those who were trying to get off that plantation to escape. So that's what the ritual was for those who were enslaved during those Thanksgiving holidays as well. So, yeah. And over many decades, many presidents have acknowledged the history, and they have presented the importance of the Native American, history, their contribution, their existence, to this country, and by way of proclamation, so to speak, proclamations. And a proclamation is basically a public or official announcement, especially when dealing with a matter of great importance. So some of the proclamations and there's many, 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 they date back way back, but some of the proclamations that have been acknowledged. October 10th through the 16th is Native American Awareness Week. That was brought forth by President Gerald Ford in 1976. American Indian Day was May 13th, 1983, brought forth by Ronald Reagan, who also had a Native American Week. That's, I think it's between November 23rd and the 30th. That kind of went back and forth with that, September of 86. Also National American Indian Heritage Week, and that was brought forth by President George H.W. Bush. And again, that was moved into the month. I might have that mixed up. And if you guys know for sure the date that the National American Heritage Month took place, what year, please feel free to share. But those are just some of the proclamations. And we know, some of the things that I didn't see acknowledged, not even in history books, was the fact that, with the colonizers, what they did to the Native Americans when they came to America. And I'm not talking about the movie Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. I'm talking about the colonizers who came to the continent of North America, and they did some savage things: rape, stole, slaughter, they deceived. Think about the Trail of Tears, smallpox. They taking the language, even stealing the children and giving them to white families, forcing them to live in corners of the land, barren land, meaning they couldn't develop crops from that land, and they took all their rich land. And then you think about the side effects of what happened to these Native American people over time. Alcoholism. I remember my sweetie and I used to take a lot of road trips, so we would stop in different places. And one of the places we stopped happened to be an Indian Native American reservation. And you could not have liquor. You had to sign off that you did not have liquor with you. When we're on vacation, or me, I'll just speak for myself. But I like to, have something in the hotel room. But yeah, you couldn't even buy or bring alcohol on these sacred lands. But then you consider the broken families, depression and poverty, and all of this stems from the things that were done to them. People would like to just accuse people of being who they are without starting the story from the beginning. And that's what did it, right? Even with the Trail of Tears, if you guys don't know, that was something that was brought forth through the president at that time, President Andrew Jackson, who actually was the vice president after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. And that is not, am I getting him mixed up with, anyways, he was able to gain congressional passage of the Indian Removal Act in the 1830s, which authorized the government to extinguish any Indian title to land claims in the Southeast. So he wasn't the sole architect of this whole Indian Removal Act. So it began even maybe like a decade before his presidency. The Indian Removal Act was the top of the legislative priority for people prior. So it kind of, when I was reading about this, it triggered Project 2025. No, it just didn't happen in 2024. We just learned about it in 2024, but they've been writing about this at least 10 years back, maybe 50 years back, maybe when the civil rights was granted. So, you think about, you just think, oh, this President Andrew Jackson, he came in and this is what happened. I relate that to who number 47 will be. Again, if you guys have a name for him, T Rump, number 47. I don't know if we're gonna use orange Cheeto anymore. See a little bronze now. They getting his color together. He looking a little bit more with a human color now. But different things, with him being president, it's not any Republican would have pushed along the agenda. It would have been quieter, of course, and we may not have seen it so much, but it's been going on since before this man was president and when he will become again. But he's put in that seat to move along their agenda. And that's similar to what Andrew Jackson did when he became president. And so it was at the top of his legislative priority upon taking on his role as president. Yeah. So, and there's also a clip of this white man he was talking about. I don't know who he is, but he said something I think was, pretty much on point. Basically, just speaking to what happened here in America.
And refer to them as savages. That's an achievement. Who's the savage? If you go, the first time I encountered this was in a little town in Massachusetts called Deerfield, or Old Deerfield. It's a reconstruction of what that little town looked like in colonial America. And so the houses are redone to look like they did then. Very nice job. It's a tourist thing. You go there and you look at that. And in front of each house is a plaque that explains something about this house. It was inhabited by the Yipsy Doodle family or whatever it was. And then description. On the 18th of October of 1702, the savages attacked. I remember the first time I saw this, the savages. You come in here, destroy everything these people have, and they are the savages. That's an interesting move.
It is. I hadn't thought of that before.
So that was some old white man. I don't know who he was, but it is trending on social media, having another conversation with a younger white male and basically just saying how, we have this revisionist history and how, those who we call the colonizers and people who so-called migrated here from other countries, what they did. And then once they settled, you think about even Thanksgiving for that, they made it so that it was, that they were the victims basically. And that that they survived a war that they created, basically celebrating that. And we see that with the Confederate statues and all kind of things, naming buildings after these people, things you wouldn't see in Germany. You wouldn't see any buildings or any representation of Hitler or the Nazis, but here in the United States, our Black children enter schools that are named after people who wanted to see them enslaved, if not dead. And so he spoke to that. And I think it's just the reality that we live in, right? It's the reality of it. So they took away the Native Americans' land, and under the act of the Indian removal in 1830, anxiously. And it reminds me of other situations where these so-called colonizers happen to look the same, come from the same place. Apartheid, if you guys remember that, that was back in Africa, where the Black Africans were slaughtered, stolen, and disenfranchised. Nelson Mandela, he was incarcerated for like 27 years, but once he got out and got his freedom, he was able to turn these things around. But again, these Africans are ripped of their land, their life, their freedoms. They had the same conditions we had here as far as discrimination, whites only kind of thing. And with the racial segregation, there was a racial segregation law. It was widely practiced in South Africa before 1948. But when the National Party led by Daniel F. Malan gained office that year, it extended the policy and gave it the name apartheid. And I was also taught that it's actually pronounced apartheid, but we all say apartheid, so I'll stick with that. The implementation of apartheid, often called separate development, since the 1960s was made possible through the Population Registration Act of 1950, which classified all South Africans as either Bantu, which means all Black Africans, colored, which meant that you were of mixed race, or white. So there were three: Bantu, Black, colored, mixed, and then there was white. A fourth category, Asian, included Indian and Pakistani, was later added. One of the other most significant acts in terms of forming the basis of apartheid system was the Group Areas Act of 1950. It established residential and business sections in urban areas for each race, and members of other races were barred from living, operating businesses, or owning land in them, which led to thousands of colors, remember those are mixed people, blacks and Indians, being removed from areas classified for white occupation. In practice, the act and the two others in 1954 and 1955, which also collectively were known as Land Acts, completed a process that then began the similar Land Acts adopted in 1913 and 1936. The end result was to set aside more than 80% of the South Africans' lands for the white minority. Okay, remember the white minority, 80% of the land for the white minorities, to help enforce the segregation of the races and prevent blacks from encroaching on white areas. The government strengthened the existing past laws, which required non-whites to carry documents authorizing their presence in restricted areas. Again, it's a trigger for me because I think about that with these the immigration laws. We think right now we good, but those of us who are actually citizens may have to walk around without papers under some of these rules that may be implemented. But again, with Nelson Mandela, he came out with a new constitution that enfranchised blacks and other racial groups, and that was adopted in 1993 once he was released after 27 years, and it took effect in 1994. All race national elections also in 1994 produced a coalition government with a black majority led by an anti-apartheid activist, Nelson Mandela. So remember, there was a coalition with a black majority and led by an anti-apartheid activist, Nelson Mandela, the country's first black president. These developments marked the end of the legislated apartheid, but not the end of entrenched social and economic effects. So this is the same thing we're experiencing here in the United States and anywhere these so-called colonizers touch, right? Because after the damage is done, even if we go back and try to correct it per se, we're still dealing with the effects because we've already instilled a level of privilege into the mind of these white people who are used to being able to have certain advantages that colored people, black people, and Asian people were not privy to. And it's hard to undo that attitude. So they still have, to this day, experience those, the side effects of that being banned from walking amongst their continent freely. And keep in mind that African men and women are the grandparents of the world, okay, considering where the original man was born. So again, with land ownership in South Africa at the time of the 1994 transition, whites, less than 10% of the population, owned 87% of the land. This is post-transition of the government, ANC government's goal was to transfer, they wanted to transfer 30% of the land from whites to blacks, just 30% of the 87% that they had, right? In the first 5 years. So this was the plan to give 30% of that land. They were trying not to make it too bad. And I just remember hearing the story, the white people were like, they're taking our land, they're making us get off. That wasn't your land. You took that from somebody else. You disenfranchise these people. And now you're saying that they're taking your land. No, they're coming back for it. Kind of like what we're trying to do with reparations here in the United States. But yeah, so they just wanted to give 30% of that land back in the first 5 years. 20 years later, 30, 32, 33 years later, only 10% of South Africa's land has been transferred from whites to blacks. Only 10% of the proposed 30%. Okay, so let's talk about the Native Americans again. Remember, they were pushed off their land under an act enacted by the president at that time, you guys, okay? And of the 1.9 billion acres of land in North America, Native Americans own approximately 56 million of that land in the United States. 56 million acres of that land in the United States, which is approximately 2.3%. 2.3% of their land is theirs. And who to really say is theirs per se, right? So that land is held in a trust by the United States for various Native American tribes and individuals. Again, in a trust by the United States. And who's the United States? The people that actually took their land, but y'all got it in a trust. Okay, illusions, right? Again, Black people here in the United States in 1865, there was a special field order. Remember, after we were free, it was the 40 acres and a mule, right? To give land to us. You got all this free labor, you made you super wealthy. You have generational wealth to this day. Shout out to JP Morgan Bank and Georgetown colleges and all of the other institutions that are thriving and continue to have generational wealth off the backs of enslaved labor. So it was a well-known attempt to help newly freed enslaved to integrate into society and accumulate wealth. So it was proposed that 400,000 acres were set aside for newly freed enslaved. However, President Andrew Johnson, who was so just to make a correction, because I know I got it mixed up. I said Andrew Jackson was the one who, gave sent ran these people off their land, the Native Americans, and he was not the VP of Abraham Lincoln. So it was Andrew Johnson. So just a quick correction to the story I was sharing with you earlier. So anyways, President Andrew Johnson, who was the VP until Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, reversed his order, giving the land back to the former Confederate owners. Really? When the land near the southeast coast was evenly distributed, each family would have got 40 acres and a tillable ground. So that's what the 40 acres and a mule was about. Giving land to the newly freed enslaved to be able to provide for themselves, not to come and live next door to you, to live in your house, or to integrate, but to live separately, to the point where when this was all established under General William T. Sherman, who proposed to 20 Black pastors in Savannah. They got together in Georgia after the Civil War was ending and the enslaved Africans were being, freed. The Black leaders gathered with him, this General William T. Sherman, these 20 pastors, and they, on January 12, 1865, meeting with the military officials in a mansion, they explained that they feared it would take years for racial prejudice to dissipate in the South. So instead, they wished to live amongst themselves on their own land. That's what they proposed, these pastors, and that would entail redistributing the land of the Southern plantation owners. One pastor was quoted as saying, "The way we can best take care of ourselves is to have land and turn it and till it into our own labor." That was Reverend Garrison Frazier. He was 67 at the time, Baptist minister. He also said that, which included individuals who had been enslaved and lived as free alike, we want to be placed on land until we are able to buy it and make it our own. So he was off that separate and equal at that time. But you see the similarities in all of these stories we talked about. In Africa, we talked about apartheid. We talked about the Trail of Tears, actually called under Andrew Johnson. I just forgot the name, but I'm going to keep moving forward. But 3 different incidents where people were disenfranchised, moved off of their land, given that land to white people, and then the fight it took to try to get it back. It's really something. But in other news, Bill Gates, according to the Land Report, he owns 242,000 acres of farmland in addition to 25,000 plus acres of traditional land and 1,200 acres of recreational land. So again, that's a grand total of 268,984 acres of land. And that land is spread out throughout the South, the Midwest, and the West, with holdings in 19 states. Okay, that's Bill Gates and his wife. The couple has had the most land. Most of their land is in Louisiana, Arkansas, with 69,000 plus acres and 47,000 plus acres, respectively. Their lowest holding is in New Mexico, which is just 1 acre. Okay. It's a lot. And even with the laws in place dealing with the government that we have, these colonizers, they've always created the law to be able to reverse anything that's put into effect. Even if you think about bankruptcy, you think about the number 45 T-Rump having 6 bankruptcies. And that's what a lot of rich people do, right? When they don't want to pay their bills, it's not a financial hardship to file bankruptcy as a corporation, because corporations are only recognized as people when it's time for political contributions. But otherwise, you're just an entity and you can just write that off and start over. Or we will just give you tax dollars, which we call corporate welfare, and help you get ahead. They've always found a way to get themselves out of debt so that their credit's never bad, right? I mean, I'm just saying. But when it comes to, of course, the working man here, it's not that easy. Even if we do buy land, there are laws in effect. Eminent domain, for example. Eminent domain refers to the power of the government to take private property and convert it into public use. Shout out to West Las Vegas, which is what they're trying to do now, learning that that's a no flood zone and that's a prominent area right near downtown. Eventually we'll see the transition, because people, after their grandparents pass, they're going to start selling those homes instead of holding on to that property for generational wealth. but this is what happens. But even if you don't want to sell it, they have a law that's going to say, you gonna sell it. And okay, we'll give you money, because even if it's under the Fifth Amendment, so it provides that the government may only exercise this power if they provide just compensation to the property owners. What is just compensation? They're gonna give you the property value at the time, and we know that fluctuates. You could start a house that you paid 300,000 for based on the assessments in your area, but then when the market crashed, it shot out to 2008. Then your house is only worth 150,000. So is that what they're gonna give me? I'm just saying. .com. So yeah. But I know there's going to be a lot of pushback, even just speaking on behalf of the Native Americans. You'll hear some Black people say, well, I don't have much to say about that because they enslaved Black people too. As so did Africans, some of our ancestors. That was how they were able to get us from one continent to the other with the help of some, evil savages that happened to have the same skin color as us and be born on the same continent as us. So, there's always going to be some bad people in the bunch, right? But for the whole of us, that's not what it is, except when you think about a particular region of people. If you just look at that history, it's real thick. So I'm not saying all of them, but the numbers are really something. The numbers are really something. And so, yeah, actions speak louder than words. So you guys, and I just want to reiterate that. I'm not just speaking to, the political things that you can do in order to have your voice heard, voting, putting your money where your mouth is, maybe crowdfunding, maybe putting your money into getting the right people in these seats. It's the same that people do as lobbyists. They put all that money, places like Walmart and all these corporations that you're hearing about that contribute to the presidency of number 45. They put their money where their mouth is. They want certain things to be implemented, and they put their money together and made it happen. We can do the same thing. But what does it really mean when you do that? And are people seeing you for who you really are? When people show you who they are, do you believe them? And when people see you, do they believe you are who you are? And are they seeing you as for who you believe you are? So are you intentional about that? Are you intentional about representing who you want the world to see you as? If we're portrayed as Black people on TV, people coming from other countries would think that there's a lot of, crime, that we commit a lot of crime, and it's, low education, or just, broken homes, and just all the negative things associated with us because of a small fraction of the way that we're portrayed. But when they come into our community, do they see something different? Do they see, oh, we have our own banks. We are self-sustainable. We have our own stores. We don't have to go to Walmart. We have similar facilities where it's all Black owned, and those Black dollars stay in a community, because when you step out and go home, you're living in a community that is a Black owned home. You're not driving to the other side of town and living and giving your money to non-whites, and you're contributing to your community. So are you really showing people who you are and what you're about? Are you putting your money where your mouth is? Is it what you see is what you get? Do you think that we're making a proper representation of ourselves? Even in relationships, do you ever wonder if your spouse or your partner really knows you? You may be presenting yourself a certain way. You may be giving them flowers and candy, and you may think, oh, they may think I'm romantic, but is that what they really see? Because they could be looking at you like you're a sneaky devil. You must be doing something, and you're trying to hide it with candy and flowers. And is that true? So perceptions are everything, and intentions are everything, and what you're really doing, what you're speaking about, what you may be complaining about, or how you feel about a certain situation, does that reflect in your actions, your day-to-day actions? I don't know. Do people really see you or you really are? I've learned over time that maybe I've disappointed people. People have had a perception of me, and then you do something that is not part of who they believe you to be, and now they're disappointed. Is that my fault? But in the end, who are you? And do you feel like that you need to live up to other people's expectations, or are you comfortable with who you are as a person, and you feel like your representation is there, and they might be like Stevie Wonder. They just can't see you. You can't see me. Shout out to Tupac. But yeah, so it's a lot to think about in the whole realm of it. When we think about everything that we like and dislike, the things we want to change, the things we want to keep the same, what are we doing to manifest that? And are people seeing that when they walk into a room? Are they respecting us in that nature, or are they looking at us totally different because our actions don't represent that. So that's just another thing to think about. But money, power, and respect is a big thing. We know we have the money. We have trillions of dollars. We disseminate throughout this country annually, more than some other developed countries. And so we have the financial power to make changes that we want to see. You just think about all the things that we've gained and what have we done with those gains. When I think about gains, I'll go back to Black Friday. You go buy something on sale, you think you're getting a deal, but then you take 6 months to pay off that deal, or a year. So what did you do with your gains? You gave it right back tenfold, basically. Does that make sense? Think about it. Are people are they just looking at you like, oh, they're dumb, they're just going to come in here and buy this? It's like going to the dollar store. We think we're really getting a deal because a pack of toilet paper is $1. I'm just making up a number. I'm sure it's got to be at least $1.25. But if you really drill down to it, are you really saving? Because when you look at how many rolls and applies of that toilet paper, you really didn't get a deal, but you got $1.25. And if you go to Target, you're going to pay $3, even though you're going to get more, and maybe the quality might be a little better, the options may be more. But in essence, it's almost like a deceptive thing. So, things aren't always what they seem to be, and they're presented in a way to make you believe they are. And is that how you're presenting yourself to people? Are you not getting what you want out of anything, out of this political arena, out of your relationship, friendships, family? Because people have one perception of you and your actions are different. We've had voting rights since 1965, yet we still haven't fulfilled our full power. Why is that? Like, we fought for this, and some people are very apathetic about what this means to have that power. And I just spoke to you about in Africa, under the apartheid, having a whole Black, for lack of a better term, congressional group. They were able to get a Black president who made strides, and it wasn't really good. The law said that they should have gotten 30% of the land, but white people pushed back. We see that right here in America right now. These people are pushing back on diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're pushing back on affirmative action. They're pushing back on any programs put into effect to benefit people who have been disenfranchised, marginalized, undervalued, and underestimated. They want to keep people back. They don't want people to be in the same position or ahead of them. And they use their political power to do that. And so, it's wild out here. But, a lot of our money is spent on interest. So when I talk about those trillions again, we're putting that money into interest. And even student loans, Black people pay 2 times as much debt as whites. Even though we do graduate at a higher rate, especially Black women. But the debt is so high because the disparities in income, the interest rates, again, the things that were initially put into place to keep us back, so that when we got to a point where we were able to have access, shout out to DEI and affirmative action and to civil rights, have access to those things that were just freely available to white people, we still had setbacks due to not having the advantages of being able to build our credit, to being able to save, being able to, even have the education to understand credit, the science of credit. But even in some religions, it teaches you about interest, and it says that it is forbidden. In the Quran, it teaches us to not borrow with interest. And standardly, the argument against interest is that it is exploitive. And it says that a rich person is one who has lots of money and is in a position to lend, or a poor person has little money and is in need of a loan. If he takes out an interest-bearing loan, the net transfer will be from the poor to the rich, which is counterintuitive and exploitive on all but a really hardline analysis. I think about Jim Crow. When the newly freed enslaved people were free, it's, again, I compare it to being let out of prison. You just or jail. You let out right on the street. The rest is up to you to figure out housing, how you gonna get from that building, whatever the situation is, employment or whatnot. Now you're free. With Jim Crow, they just freed the people. It was a promise of 40 acres and a mule, but nobody got it. but they just freed the people and they had to fend for themselves. So who's going to hire them, right? We had, how long did it take us to get affirmative action to where we had access to jobs? I mean, good Lord. So these people were free, let free, but they had access to nothing because the laws prohibited them having access to it. But then here comes those sharecroppers. Hey, you need to make a living. You need a place to stay. You can live on this land and work off a debt. I'm going to charge you $5 to work off your debt. And then when it's time to pay, oh, you didn't work long enough. You know, they could come up with any excuse. And who they going to go tell? Mama? Mama can't do nothing about it. And so they were constantly working off a debt that they could never repay because they added interest on it, interest on it, interest on it, interest on it, to where they were forever caught up and enslaved in a different way, though, financially now. So they had the freedom to walk away, but where to? Where to? And I think about that with credit cards and student loans, just any interest bearing loan. So I understand how the Quran does teach the believers to not borrow with interest because of this, because you're going to be forever indebted to someone, especially an evil, wicked person. Um, um, Forever debt, you know, it's forever debt. You think about child support, and that's involuntary, because if you owe and if you get behind on paying it, it's not like you signed up to pay child support. Someone signed you up for it. Some men and women do sign up for it. I will say that it's an agreement in a divorce decree, or just two mutual mediation say we'll just keep it on paper. But also with being put into that system, they have it designed to where if you don't pay on time, they're going to tag on interest. Why are we paying the state? Why are people paying the state for being late? Like, that ain't your kid. Why we got to pay you and him, you and her? You see what I'm saying? But it's a way to keep you enslaved, because what happens is that money builds up and builds up and builds up what you owe. And so you can never be a part of the American dream. You can never go be a homeowner. In some cases, you can't even travel outside of the state if you owe a certain amount. So there's a form of slavery associated to that. So I do respect the teachings in the Quran on that level. We know it's kind of hard to get around that, right? Not paying interest, because, you know, who has $300,000 in cash to go buy a house? But you can save it. You know, there's ways to do things. It's very possible to buy a car outright. So, you know, you can do it. It might take a lot of sacrifice, but it can be done. And then you don't owe anybody. And then, yeah, so it's just things to think about. Again, the dollar circulates 6 hours in the Black community compared to other communities where it's there much, much longer, dozens of hours longer than what we're experiencing. So, you know, when I'm just having this conversation and I'm asking, what is it, you know, are you putting your money where your mouth is? You know, when I'm thinking about Black Friday, when I'm thinking about in relationships, are your actions speaking for you? Are you showing and proving who you are? Do people know and understand that your money speaks for you, and that, you know, at the end of the day, if you're not getting your money in power, it's not respected, you can pick it up and take it. It's like being on the basketball court. You know, you bring the ball and people start bumping too hard, elbowing too hard, you can literally just take your ball and walk away. And what they gonna do? They can't play unless they go get their own. You see what I'm saying? And that's important. That's so important. So just something to reflect on, because I think it's important that we do reflect. What does it really mean when you say what you say? How passionate about you manifesting the things that you want to see change or kept the same? Are you intentional about showing people who you are in day-to-day life? You know, you want a level of respect, but you're doing things that say otherwise, right? Is this what you see is what you get? Are you getting that response that you're expecting from people? And again, I'm talking about personal relationships and even outside, just dealing with the government and political aspects. Are we getting the respect that we deserve? And if not, why not? What are we doing to thwart that? What are we doing to make people think that they don't have to hear our demands and act upon them? We got the money, but the money brings the power. So why don't we have the respect? Back to my point, actions. How are we distributing the money? How are we using our money as power? Are we putting our money into Black banks? Shout out to One United. Are we spending our money in our communities? Are we letting it circulate longer in those communities? You know, even people that take advantage of our spending power, like Walmart. I heard a man say, listening to a podcast recently, that, you know, even when they do contribute to Black businesses, For example, black hair care products. When you go into this store at Walmart, the big names, L'Oreal, Revlon, they cater to us too, right? You'll see those black hair care products, they're top shelf. Some of y'all might know top shelf, based on liquor, the good stuff. Well, then the black owned products are on the bottom shelf. And we know the bottom shelf is going to give you a headache, and make you, not feel so well the next day. So that's how I kind of interpret how you're interpreting our black businesses, right? So you're putting what you consider what we're socially conditioned to believe is better, more quality on the top shelf, Revlon, L'Oreal, and all of these big names that are not black owned. And then black hair care products that we buy probably more so of. That's where I go down. I look low down to get what I need if I'm in Walmart, which I haven't been in a while, but to get the stuff that's owned by black people. So it's also a psychological conditioning. But shout out to Target, because when I heard him say that, I reflected and I said, he's right about that. I've noticed that too. And secondly, when I go on Target, you see a lot of the black hair care products are top shelf, black owned, even with clothing. Like Target is different. They're more liberal. They're a different type of breed. And I'm just so glad that, I have a place like that to go to. Shout out to GB in the chat who says, I've seen child support cases where the state misplaced funds and turns around and charged the father late fees, penalties, garnishment, jail, etc. for the state's own negligence. It's crazy. Yes, I've heard stories like that. This is so true. And it's nothing you can do about it. You're at the mercy of these people who just decide to put interest on you. Shout out to Jim Crow and sharecroppers. Shout out to people who disenfranchise people and, thinking about payday loans and all of that. Just all those scenarios people put you in to keep you enslaved, and there's nothing you can do about it. And with child support in some states, you can be arrested. You can actually be locked up for not being able to afford to pay whatever the fee is. But on top of that, not being able to get access to jobs, and now they're going to make it even harder again. Not that it isn't hard already, by taking away, the obligation for people to have a certain number of minorities employed in order to get state funding, which is our tax dollars, the same people that you're discriminating against. It's a cold world out here, y'all, but we in it. And where you gonna go? You gonna fly off the earth? So we talked about, they're everywhere. They've infested the continent. They've infested the globe with their evil ways, and they found a way to entrap people in slavery in different ways. And this kind of slavery looks different, but like I said, it's still the same. But what are we doing to make our demands, right? What are we doing to make our demands heard and them to respect us? There's certain words you can say about Black people. You can say disparaging things like the N-word, call Black women whores and things, and there's no pushback. But if you say anything that is they want to call anti-Semitic, whether it is or not, if you say something or insinuate that and they call it anti-Semitic, you literally cancel. You literally are wiped off. You are literally wiped out. You can't go on TV no more. I mean, it shuts down. There's even remember the Michael Jackson song? He had a word that he was just referencing how the hate is in the world. And he was referencing it's a K word that is they associate with the Jewish community. And he, in his original song, he used that word just in reference, not in a derogatory term, but just saying, the hate you give, right? And this is an example of it. So he cut that out. You ain't gonna hear it no more. You will not hear that word. We hear the N word, and thanks to us mainly, but we hear the N word like crazy in television, even in white shows. You hear Black people using the N word. Like there's certain things you can say about us, and there are no repercussions. And why is that? Because we got the money, so we got the power. But where's our motherfucking respect? That's all I'm saying, .com. Where's our respect? And actions speak louder than words. So what are we doing with our money? And why aren't we spending that money with people who care about us? Why aren't we spending that money with people who aren't fighting against us to keep us down? Why aren't we spending that money with institutions that will give us equal interest rates. I mean, fair interest rates that don't discriminate against us, non-discriminatory institutions. Why are we still paying into these things and then saying, oh, the system is this or things are that way? A lot of stuff that's going on, we have to take accountability for it, even how people treat us in our personal lives. If you wilding out all the time and being irresponsible, and then you turn around and people talking to you out the side of their neck, well, why do they feel comfortable enough to talk to you like that? Because you haven't demanded respect. You haven't shown your power. And, but it's just so much, you guys. It's just so much. And I just want you guys to really just think about it. I know I gave a lot of historical information, but it all ties together. I'm just telling you, it all comes together and it's part of the world we live in. So, and it's just a lot. Just talking about Black Friday, and then of course, the boycotting and the boycotting, what we could do with our money, Thanksgiving, and what it means to the Native Americans, and even with everything that they did, even with the Native Americans, all these proclamations. You think about that when how some people were like, oh, they gave us Black History Month. They didn't give that to us. That was authored by a Black man. Or we think about Juneteenth, which was authored by a Black woman. We think about all these. What was the word I'm trying to say? These things that kind of sugarcoat or hush, kind of like hush money, something to just keep us quiet, by just acknowledging us. When I talked about all the proclamations that presidents over the years and decades have presented to the Native Americans, what did that do to change their situation? The damage has already been done for them, right? I also think about a story where I remember a Black lady who was in a leadership role, just liken this to that, just acknowledge me. So all these proclamations are just acknowledgments. It doesn't change your social status. It doesn't change the fact that you still cannot build generational wealth. It doesn't change the fact that alcoholism is really prevalent in your community because of all of the damage that's been done and broken homes and things of that nature. Besides saying we acknowledge that you are here, what are you going to do to right your wrongs? So a proclamation is just what? You're talking loud, but you're not saying nothing. Actions speak louder than words. And I remember hearing a Black woman say she was in a leadership role, and she said she was telling me how some employees complain to her that they don't feel like they're being acknowledged. These are grown people. They don't feel like they're being acknowledged or praised for their work ethics. And she said, for me, I don't need your verbal affirmations. If you want to show me appreciation for my contributions, appreciate me on my check. Okay, that's all I'm saying. So I don't need you to tell me how you appreciate me and that you see me and you acknowledge me. Show me. Let your actions speak for you. Let your actions show and prove to me that you are truly sorry for what has happened, even if you had nothing to do with it. What you have the power to undo these things, at least when you're demanded to do so. But instead, we're dealing with people who choose to reverse the strides that have been put into place. So, that's the world we live in. And, we can bring about change. We still have the power, and we can still make change. And I just want to encourage you guys to do so. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up out of here. Before I do, I just want to go ahead and thank everybody who was in the chat with me today. And, I always appreciate y'all with me live in the chat on Facebook and YouTube, and those who join me later. I love and appreciate y'all. And I just want to just go away just saying, just beware of thieves who come to steal your joy. Beware of them. They're out there. Be cognitive of them. And I'll be back next week on In Your Ear Radio. I am your host, LaToya. I love you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.